Right now, like at this exact moment, your heart is beating. Thump thump, thump thump. It's just the sound of being alive. But man, there's this one statistic out there that's honestly scarier than any horror movie you've ever seen. I mean, 10 out of 10 people are gonna hit a moment where that sound just stops. Our culture loves to sell us this idea that it's just a lights out kind of thing, or that we all just turn into ghosts. But look, there's this ancient book that gets incredibly specific about what actually happens the very first second after your last breath. See, only someone who's actually been to the other side can pull back the curtain on life and death, and Jesus, he did exactly that, showing us there is no lights out. It's an immediate transfer. To explain how this whole thing works, he told a story about two guys who crossed the finish line of life on the exact same day, but had completely opposite receptions. And honestly, what you're about to realize, it's going to completely change how you look at the life you're living right now. So first, let's look at the guy nobody ever noticed. His name was Lazarus. He was a beggar, covered in sores, just wishing he could catch a few crumbs falling from the rich guy's table. When he died, the Bible doesn't even mention a funeral. His body was probably just tossed into some common ditch with no flowers, no crying, completely ignored by the world. But in the spiritual realm, oh man, the exact opposite was going down. Luke 16:22 drops this fascinating little detail that a lot of people just gloss over. It says that the beggar died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. Just picture that for a second. The moment Lazarus's eyes closed on this earth, he wasn't sitting alone in some dark, empty void. He didn't have to wander around trying to find his way because he was met there. God literally sent an escort of angels, these incredibly powerful, glorious beings, with one specific mission to pick up the soul of that beggar. This guy who had absolutely nobody standing up for him on earth, he had the royal guard of heaven waiting on him at death. See, the first thing a saved soul feels isn't loneliness, it's companionship. It's that deep security of knowing you're being carried home. But then, there's the flip side of the coin, and this is where things get really uncomfortable. The text goes on to say that the rich man also died and was buried. Notice the contrast there, where the rich guy got the grand funeral, expensive flowers, and beautiful speeches, but the very next verse is like a hard, sharp cut to reality. It says that in Hades, being in torment, he lifted up his eyes. Did you catch how fast that happened? Like there was no lag, no waiting room. There were no angels waiting to escort him and no warm welcome. I mean, while his body was being dressed in expensive clothes for the viewing, his soul was already dropping alone. And look, there's a detail here that almost nobody has the guts to talk about openly anymore, but it's right there in the text, revealing three sobering truths about dying without God. First, consciousness is instant, meaning he wasn't asleep. He lifted up his eyes and knew exactly what was going on. Second, your senses stay with you, where he literally cried out saying he was tormented in this flame, feeling thirsty and feeling pain, because physical death didn't numb his soul at all. Third, the isolation. Because unlike Lazarus, who went up with a crowd, the rich man went down completely by himself. And when he got there, he could see the glory from a distance, but he was cut off by this massive chasm that nobody could ever cross. But honestly, the most tragic part of the whole thing wasn't the fire, it was the conversation. The rich man begs for just a little relief, and Abraham replies, "Son, remember." And that right there might be the worst part of judgment, the memory. He remembered Lazarus, he remembered he had 5 brothers still alive, and he remembered every single opportunity he blew, wanting to save his family when it was just too late. See, you're still you after you die, meaning your personality and your memories, they all go with you. And for that man, the memory of having the Bible, having the prophets, and just brushing it all off, that was a massive part of his suffering. He literally begged for someone to go warn his family, but he found out the hardest way possible, that the clock on repentance runs out the exact second your heart stops. The stories of these two men prove to us that death isn't a final wall, it's a door. It's a door that opens to two destinations, and there is no third option. It doesn't matter how rich, how famous, or how much of a good person the world thinks you are. In your final second, when the doctors look at the monitor and call it, only one thing is going to matter, which is who is coming to pick you up. Are you going to open your eyes completely alone in the torment of your own memories, or are you going to feel the hands of angels carrying you into the comfort of God's presence? Look, that choice isn't made over there. It's made right here, now. Look, about 98% of the people watching this video are probably going to close this video and just shrug it off. But if you're not one of them, go ahead and hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. So catch you later, and God bless.